Hey guys, tonight we step softly across polished stone floors, past paper lanterns flickering low in the corners, and into the hush of a Tang Dynasty sleep chamber. The air is thick with sandalwood smoke and quiet anticipation. You brush aside a woven curtain and step into a small room, lined with embroidered silk cushions and linen-stuffed pillows. The ceiling arches gently, shaped like an inverted lotus leaf. Somewhere a water clock gurgles, marking the slow crawl toward midnight. You won't be texting, doom scrolling, or hitting snooze here. In fact, you probably wouldn't survive this place without at least 3 court attendants adjusting your bed angle, fluffing your dream pillow, and applying the appropriate herbal oil to your temples based on the lunar calendar. Ancient China didn't just tolerate sleep, it studied it, honored it, turned it into an art. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lie down on a silk coverlet stitched with cloud patterns and cranes in flight. The room smells faintly of osmanthus and old parchment. You're in a guest chamber used for sleep consultations. Yes, those were a thing. Wealthy families would commission private clinics to diagnose and guide their slumber. Not like a rushed therapist's office, but more like a spa meets astrology lab meets grandma's advice corner. Outside the window, moonlight dapples a courtyard garden. Peonies nod slowly in the breeze, and the sound of distant bamboo wind chimes plays like a lullaby for ghosts. In this chamber, you are not expected to do. You are expected to drift. Nearby sits a low lacquered table holding items that make your modern nightstand look like a chaotic junk pile. Here, there's a carved ivory tool used to apply scented oil behind the ears. There's a small jade disc used to cool the mind by gently pressing it to the forehead. And a ceramic fox-shaped box that probably holds dried herbs you don't recognize and are 80% sure would make you hallucinate or solve math equations in your sleep. Historians still argue whether these tools were more symbolic than functional, but the detail and craftsmanship say something else. Sleep wasn't just necessary, it was sacred. Your sleep position? That mattered. People here followed something called the 8 harmonious postures, which basically told you how not to sleep like a rag doll. Each position had its own purpose. Side sleeping to encourage gentle dreams. Back sleeping for spiritual openness. Fetal curl for emotional recovery. One scroll even warned against crane neck pose, which we're guessing is the Tang equivalent of falling asleep hunched over your laptop. And pillows. Not a fluffy, saggy afterthought like today. They were serious business. You're now resting your head on a linen-stuffed rectangular block stitched with calming mantras. Pillows were chosen based on season, ailment, even mood. Porcelain for summer heat. Bamboo for anxious hearts. Silk for vivid dreaming. One fringe theory even suggested that placing certain minerals inside pillows could ward off nightmares. Jade, for example, was believed to cool the fire of restless thoughts. There was also the scent factor. The chamber's walls were likely treated with plant resins to subtly perfume the air, like living inside an herbal vaporizer. During sleep consultations, doctors would ask what smells visited your dreams. If you dreamt of oranges, you might be prescribed a citrus-soaked sachet. If you dreamed of nothing but charcoal and shadows, they might switch you to peony root and mugwort. You shift slightly and realize even the quilt has a weight to it. A reassuring heaviness designed to mimic the pressure of being embraced. Weighted blankets before they were a TikTok trend, and now the lights dim further. Not by switch, but by slow-burning oil lamps fading with purpose. Your eyes follow the silhouettes dancing on the rice paper walls. A bird, a tree, someone playing the flute far off. Sleep is coming not as surrender, but as a carefully designed ritual. One that makes you feel seen, safe, and strangely elegant. Outside, the cicadas begin their song, a steady pulse, hypnotic and warm. Somewhere in this complex, a scholar is finishing a poem to tuck beneath his pillow. A healer is preparing a bedtime brew thick with lotus and plum. A dream recorder is setting out ink and scrolls in case he's summoned to interpret someone's midnight vision of a white dragon riding a cloud. And you're already floating. Just imagine your usual bedroom trying to compete with this. You wonder briefly, how many dreams were dreamt on this very mat? How many people whispered secrets into the pillows, hoping they'd rise like steam into the next world? The Tang dynasty didn't separate sleep from soul. To dream was to listen, to ancestors, to gods, to hidden parts of the self. And while some modern scholars wave away these rituals as charming superstition, others argue they reveal a nuanced understanding of psychology wrapped in poetry and tradition. Some even believe these rooms functioned as both sleep labs and confession booths. You weren't just sleeping, you were seeking. As your breath slows, your mind starts to unspool. You picture a dreamscape forming. Silken bridges, silver koi, a tea garden where everyone speaks in riddles. The chamber folds around you like a silk cocoon. You're no longer visiting the past. You're inside it. And right here, under the sleeping gaze of dynasties long gone, you are exactly where you're meant to be. You wake, if you can call it that, not to a blaring alarm, but to the sound of brushstrokes against bamboo. Just beyond the lattice screen, you hear the soft scratch of ink on wood, like a sleepy cricket recording its memoir. You blink slowly. The room is the same, still hushed and amber-lit, but something's shifted. A presence. You rise, push aside the gauze curtain, and step barefoot into a quieter chamber, where one very tired boy is trying very hard not to fall asleep while doing his job. Meet the Dreamkeeper's apprentice. He's about 12, or maybe 17. It's hard to tell through the cloud of sleep deprivation and honor-bound anxiety clinging to him like a damp cloak. You can almost hear his inner monologue. Don't smudge the characters, don't drool on the bamboo. Please, no more dreams about fish. He's seated at a low desk, surrounded by scrolls that resemble flattened reeds, each one etched with meticulously painted dream records. His job? To record the dreams of others, nobles, monks, merchants who could afford such services. You'd think it was glamorous, maybe a little mystical, but really it's a lot of staying awake, squinting at symbols, and trying not to get flicked in the forehead by his sleepy but ever-watchful master who, at the moment, is snoring gently in a corner. This master, gray-bearded and wrapped in a robe that smells of ink and old tea, has likely been interpreting dreams for decades. He claims to have once diagnosed a noblewoman's pregnancy based solely on her dream of falling pomegranates. Historians still argue whether that was intuition, coincidence, or pure Tang-era gossip. The apprentice reaches for a narrow reed pen, dips it in ink infused with mulberry bark, and begins etching a fresh account. A silver carp leapt over a moon gate. Dreamer reports feeling both joy and confusion. Prescribed warm milk with cardamom. You lean closer and notice the writing style, a blend of poetic metaphor and oddly clinical precision. It's not just "I dreamt of a snake," it's "a coiled serpent of the north, jade-eyed, emerged from snow. Bit the left ankle." Apparently dreams didn't just reveal the soul, they revealed imbalances in chi, foreshadowed illness, or signaled changes in fortune. But not all dreams were treated equally. The apprentice has a reference scroll nearby, a massive compilation of dream symbols passed down through generations. Elephants mean prosperity, unless they're flying, in which case, apparently, your taxes are going up. Fire could mean passion or intestinal upset. And dreams of teeth falling out? Yes, yep. That old classic. Even back then it was associated with grief, though one footnote suggests it might also mean your spouse is hiding dumplings from you. You look around and notice bamboo slats stored in carefully labeled bundles. Dreams of rain, dreams of tigers, unclear, recurring, kias, fishy. One pile is simply labeled Dreams of Government Officials, which sounds like the world's least relaxing bedtime storybook. And yet, this wasn't a sideshow. This was science in its own mystical way. People believed the soul could leave the body during sleep, exploring realms where ancestors and spirits lingered. That belief came with responsibility. If your dream self wandered, you'd better document where it went. Dreams could be evidence in court. Yes, court. There's one anecdote about a high-ranking official who dreamt he was chased by a red-eyed donkey. The emperor's advisors interpreted it as a sign of betrayal, leading to a full investigation. Spoiler, the donkey was innocent. Fringe tidbit? Dream theft. That's right, some ancient texts warn of spiritual tricksters who could steal your dreams while you slept. Kind of like ancient sleep hackers. The apprentice keeps a charm tucked in his sleeve, small, made of copper, and pressed with a turtle sigil, said to protect him from dream burglars. Is it effective? Unclear, but he hasn't reported any missing dreams. Yet. He pauses to rub his eyes. You can tell he's longing to crawl onto one of the nearby mats and let himself slip into his own dream. But apprentices rarely wrote down their dreams. Theirs were considered too messy, too unformed, still full of adolescent nonsense and poorly digested dumplings. Only when the master deemed him soul mature could he begin recording his own night journeys. Until then, he serves others. Outside, the sky is still dark, but it has that odd tinge of near dawn, a color you can't quite name. Maybe moon-washed ink or pre-bird blue. You sip from a ceramic cup left out for visitors. Inside is something that tastes like chamomile, but with a funkier, more root-like edge. It's supposed to help keep you on the edge of sleep. Not awake, not dreaming, just hovering. As the apprentice lays out the next bamboo slat, you spot one already filled with a dream about a lion with a woman's voice who taught arithmetic. It's dated to the previous week and marked with a red wax seal, indicating it was deemed prophetic. The seal means the master might present it to a regional advisor, or keep it in a locked cabinet for future omens. You're starting to see how big this whole operation is. The apprentice isn't just taking notes. He's feeding into a centuries-long project, a collective unconscious given form. Historians are still divided on whether these scrolls were ever meant for wide public reading, or if they were more like personal sleep diaries kept under spiritual lock and key. The apprentice finally leans back, stretching with a long yawn. He catches your gaze, not startled, just sleepy, and mutters something that sounds like dreams are heavier than they look. You nod, silently agreeing. There's a weight to all of this. A kind of sacred tiredness. As the master stirs and grunts, the apprentice scrambles to look busy, quickly brushing a new character onto the page. It translates roughly to fog, though given his mood it might also mean, I need a nap. You step away, leaving him to his sleepy vigil, back through the curtain into your own chamber. You lie down, feeling the strange comfort of knowing your dreams too would have been studied, sorted, and perhaps whispered about behind a lacquered screen. Somewhere, another apprentice is waking up, ready to interpret your nighttime vision of a flying goose that sounded like your cousin. Sleep is serious here, but also weirdly delightful, and that's exactly how it should be. You're now deep inside the Forbidden City, though you wouldn't know it by the stillness. Gone are the bustling corridors of palace life. No shouts from court officials, no clack of embroidered boots on polished stone. Just a long corridor bathed in moonlight and muffled by heavy silence. And at the end of it, a room you probably weren't supposed to find. This is the Emperor's nap chamber. The door doesn't creak, of course, it whispers. It knows not to disturb the sacred act taking place within. You step in, and it feels like entering a temple, but not one built for gods. No incense, no chanting, just layer after layer of thick curtains, smooth jade tiles, and quiet authority. Everything here says sleep is power. The Emperor is not present, you don't get that lucky, but the room tells his story all the same. The bed is massive, raised high like a throne, surrounded by folding screens painted with drifting clouds and cranes mid-flight. An overhead canopy muffles even the sound of breath. This isn't just a place to sleep. It's a strategy room for the subconscious, a tactical bedchamber, an imperial dream tank. You stand still, suddenly aware that you're witnessing something few ever did, the inner workings of royal slumber. During the Ming and Qing dynasties especially, sleep was scheduled for emperors. Yes, napping had a slot on the daily docket, right after graciously accept tribute, and just before get yelled at by senior ministers. And these naps weren't left to chance. A special official known as the sleep attendant, we're not kidding, oversaw the environment. Temperature was measured using water bowls. Sound levels were adjusted with silk tapestries hung at precise angles. A physician would check pulse points before and after just to make sure the emperor didn't dream of rebellion or worse, stomach cramps. One mainstream historical account even describes an emperor who had dream anxiety. He reportedly avoided napping without his trusted dream interpreter seated in the next room. If anything vivid or ominous occurred, the interpreter was woken up and asked to translate it before tea was served. Some advisors weren't allowed in court meetings unless the emperor's nap had been successful. Try using that as an excuse at your next staff meeting. The room smells faintly of agarwood and old lacquer. You brush your fingers across a nearby pillow, filled not with feathers or down, but a blend of powdered deer antler and mung bean husks, believed to cool the brain and promote noble thoughts. Royal dreams needed to be free of commoner chaos. No chickens, no leaking roofs, and definitely no dreams about running late for the imperial gala in your underthings. A delicate bell sits on the nightstand. Its purpose? To summon the dream reader should the emperor wake with a particularly cryptic vision. On some nights, this ritual happened multiple times. Dreams involving turtles, eclipses, or oddly silent birds were treated like encrypted state secrets. They were analyzed in hushed tones and logged in guarded ledgers. One strange dream involving a peach tree uprooting itself and walking west led to weeks of paranoid military maneuvers along the western border. Historians still debate whether these interpretations actually influenced real policy, or if they were used as convenient excuses for decisions already made. Like, oh, we're raising taxes again? Well, I dreamt of a leaking jar, so clearly the treasury is empty. A little dream. PR never heard. Fringe tidbit: the Dream Throne. One particularly eccentric Qing emperor reportedly commissioned a secondary bed used only when he felt an auspicious dream approaching. According to old texts, this bed was crafted with phoenix feather inlays, probably symbolic, and aligned with a specific star cluster known as the Heavenly Grotto. The idea was that by sleeping at the right celestial angle, he could intercept divine messages more clearly. Kind of like tuning your dream radio to the right frequency, using extremely expensive furniture. You cross the chamber quietly, your steps softened by woven mats dyed in midnight blue. There's a cabinet tucked behind one of the painted screens. Inside? Dozens of rolled dream reports, each sealed with colored thread indicating tone. Red for warnings, gold for blessings, gray for uncertain. You unroll one carefully. In the third watch, the Son of Heaven dreamt of a carp, transforming into a scholar who then recited the classic of filial piety backwards. He awoke confused but well-rested. Honestly, same. Sleep here wasn't about rest, it was about command. The Emperor was expected to embody cosmic order, so his dreams were part of his spiritual performance. If his sleep was chaotic, the world might be too. It sounds intense, but in a way, it's oddly flattering. Imagine your 2 p.m. nap determining the fate of an entire dynasty. You sit briefly on a silk cushion and feel its cool weight settle around you. A breeze curls in through a carved screen, stirring the incense just enough to make the shadows flicker. You wonder how many emperors dreamed here. How many woke with a start, gasping from visions of floods or phoenixes, and wondered, what now? Not all were believers, of course. Some emperors dismissed dreams entirely, called them mind dust, and warned against interpreting shadows. But even they had sleep chambers designed like temples. Even they surrounded themselves with silence and scent. Because whether or not you believed in dreams, you knew their power. You leave the room slowly, stepping back into the corridor with the careful grace of someone leaving an altar. The door eases shut behind you, sealing away centuries of royal sleep. And as you walk back toward your own borrowed chamber, you can't help but think, maybe there's something noble in your sleep too. Maybe every dream you forget was still part of something bigger, a quiet echo of a world that once believed sleep was the most important thing a person could do. You drift back into the night air, through a courtyard tangled with moonlight and low-humming lanterns, until your feet find their way down a corridor lined with stone lions and willow shadows. You don't remember choosing this path. It feels more like it chose you. And at the end of it waits the Dream Manual Pavilion. It's not grand, not imperial, but it hums with importance. A squat building with sloped eaves and ivy crawling up its wooden bones, this place once held 1,000 secrets about the mind's midnight theater. Its windows are closed, but light pulses from within, soft, golden, bookish. You slide the door open like a polite ghost. Inside, it smells like parchment and pine soot. The shelves curve like waves, hugging the room in quiet stacks of knowledge. This is where the dream manuals lived. Handwritten, annotated, revised across centuries by scholars, monks, physicians, and the occasional drama-prone mystic. You run your finger along the edge of a scroll. It's brittle but sure of itself, like a librarian who's seen some things. You ease one open. The first characters leap at you in elegant brushstrokes. The classic of dream symmetries. You try to read slowly. To dream of ascending stairs brings elevation. To descend suggests loss. If the stairs are broken, perhaps delay one's travel plans. It's part folk wisdom, part diagnostic tool, part poetry. You love how casually it drops life advice between metaphors, like a fortune cookie that took itself to grad school. These manuals weren't for idle reading. They were guidebooks, yes, but also used in court cases, healing practices, matchmaking, and military decision-making. Dreamt of a bleeding peach? Better cancel that wedding. These interpretations had weight. Entire households paused to consult the scrolls when someone dreamed of fire or a pale horse. A bad dream could mean a wronged ancestor. A good one? That your recently deceased uncle was finally chilling in paradise. One famous manual, The Forest of Dreams, cataloged over 2,000 recurring dream types, everything from dragons to sneezing monkeys to being buried in lacquer. Some interpretations are direct. To dream of water overflowing a basin suggests financial trouble. Others are so cryptic, they almost loop back into clarity. If you see a man with 3 eyebrows, fortune comes disguised. Honestly, that tracks. Fringe tidbit incoming. One manual contains an entire section on dreams involving paper. Yes, paper. Ripped paper, folded paper, eating paper, paper catching fire. It's believed that during the Song Dynasty's boom in bureaucracy, paper dreams spiked, probably because half the population was stressed out about civil service exams. Historians still argue whether this spike was genuinely mystical or just the early signs of test anxiety and statewide insomnia. You slide out another scroll, this one labeled simply, Visions in the Hour of the Rat. A side note explains that dreams between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., the rat hour, were considered the most potent, as the boundary between worlds thinned and the spirit could wander farthest. Dreams from this window were kept in special ink, preserved more carefully, and often decoded using planetary charts. You pause to imagine it. A scholar hunched over a table at midnight, cross-referencing a man's dream of bamboo forests with Mars' location in the sky. The result? A decision to delay grain shipments by 2 weeks. That's some impressive dream-based logistics. One particularly vivid account is stored in a bound folio near the back of the room. Its cover is scrawled with hasty brushstrokes and a thumbprint. inside, an entire section devoted to dreams of teeth. You knew we'd come back to that. Turns out it wasn't just grief. Some believed a dream of falling teeth foretold a political betrayal. One nobleman even had 3 teeth pulled just in case. That, friends, is preventative dreaming at its most intense. You sit for a while on a low wooden bench, letting your eyes drift over the room. There's a lantern flickering against a scroll about dreams that involve birds and their unusual attire. Yes, apparently feathered robes were a thing in the dream world. You wonder what they'd make of your dream about flamingos playing mahjong. Probably a sign to stop snacking after sunset. And while these manuals might sound whimsical, they were part of serious cultural infrastructure. Physicians studied them alongside pulse charts. Shamans quoted them during ceremonies. Families kept pocket versions in bedside drawers. One of the oldest copies of a dream manual was found buried with its owner. Maybe he figured it might come in handy in the afterlife, or maybe he just really liked metaphors. Interestingly, scholars continue to debate whether dream manuals were written to explain dreams or to shape them. Some argue that by reading a scroll about foxes and lanterns, you might dream of them that very night, thus creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Did the scrolls predict dreams, or did they program them? Chicken, meat, egg. A small wooden box catches your attention. Inside? Dream charms, thin metal tokens engraved with single characters. Stillness. Return. Rain. Forget. These were pressed into wax tablets or tucked beneath pillows. If you feared nightmares, you'd sleep with the stillness charm under your tongue. Do not try this at home. The thought occurs to you. These dream manuals weren't written to impress. They weren't theories locked in academic vaults. They were practical, messy, lovingly preserved collections of what it feels like to be human. Scared, curious, superstitious, and just trying to get a good night's sleep without being chased by a demon pig in your subconscious. You close the scrolls gently, your fingers tingling with their ancient residue. Outside, a breeze stirs the ivy. You realize you haven't heard a single bird chirp since entering the pavilion. As if even the birds respect what happens here. Or maybe they're off reading their own dream manuals. You step into the cool night again, mind buzzing with images. Carps, scrolls, eyebrowed men, stares both broken and blessed. The dream world is vast, but here, at least, someone tried to map it. Your feet crunch softly along a gravel path now, the night pressing in comfortably around your shoulders like a weighted blanket. Somewhere in the distance, water trickles over stone. And as you pass under a moon gate carved with vines and clouds, you find yourself in a place far more humble than the Dream Manual Pavilion, but no less important. A rural healing house. The thatched roof sags slightly in the middle. Its walls are simple clay and timber. There's no gold leaf here, no lacquered scrolls or imperial symbols. Just the quiet creak of bamboo in the wind and the warm smell of herbal poultices. You step inside. This is where the common folk slept off their fevers, dreams, and sometimes their worries. And here's the twist. Even these humble clinics treated sleep as medicine. You see a mat on the floor, woven from reed and lined with cotton. Beside it is a worn wooden table stacked with little drawers. Each one is labeled in a hurried hand. Mugwort, goji bark, dried lotus, powdered ginseng. A mortar and pestle sits nearby, still flecked with something green. This wasn't a place to escape your dreams. It was a place to talk about them. Decode them. Use them. Traditional Chinese medicine viewed dreams as more than mental clutter. They were diagnostic tools, messages from your inner organs, whispered in metaphor. If you dreamt of flying, the heart might be overstimulated. If you dreamed of heavy rain, the spleen could be out of balance. And if you dreamt of arguing with your ancestors, well, maybe lay off the pepper sauce at dinner. Physicians, real ones, not just shamans, were trained to read these signals. The ancient medical text Huangdi Neijing, the Yellow Emperor's inner classic, goes deep into this. It says dreams aren't just products of the mind, but reflect imbalances in the flow of qi, the life energy that runs through you like a very polite, invisible subway system. Historians still argue whether sleep in rural clinics was actually restorative or just the only free thing available. But anecdotal evidence shows people lined up for these treatments. Poor families might travel for days to get a diagnosis based on a recurring nightmare like, "Hello, yes, my cousin has dreamt of falling into a well 6 nights in a row, and we're concerned he's about to propose to the wrong person." Now, for your fringe fact, some healers kept dream maps. These were hand-painted diagrams of the human body showing how specific organs might create specific dream themes. Dream of climbing a mountain? Kidney imbalance? Dream of being chased? Liver heat? Dream of turning into a bird and yelling at people in classical Chinese? Okay, that might just be stress. One tattered map on the wall near you shows a figure with colors flowing through its body. Red streaks in the chest, cool blue around the feet. Tiny handwritten notes suggest treatments. A strong dream of fire might be treated with mulberry leaves, soaked overnight and applied to the soles of the feet. A dream of endless stairs. Again with the stairs. Might mean restless qi, best treated with licorice root and a short nap facing northeast. The best part? These clinics treated sleep as a social experience. You didn't hide your nightmares, you brought them in, laid them out like symptoms. Some clinics had dream gathering, but where patients and physicians would share dream experiences around the fire, wrapped in blankets, sipping medicinal broth. Somewhere between group therapy and spooky story hour, it turned into one of the more comforting scenes in rural medical history. You wander into the back room of the clinic and find several narrow cots, each with a simple wool blanket and a jade charm strung over the pillow. The charms aren't decorative, they're calibrated. The jade has been chosen for its cooling energy and carved with characters meant to calm the Shen, the spirit. One says, "Quiet mind," another says, "Return to root." You lie down on one just for a moment and let yourself imagine being one of the villagers here. Sick, maybe, or just deeply tired, and finding peace in the slow logic of this place. No beeping machines, no flickering fluorescents, just herbal steam, warm hands, and someone writing down your strange dream about the goose that turned into your father. One dusty record tucked under a table leg describes a patient, a woman in her 70s, who kept dreaming of red shoes. Every night, same dream. Red shoes walking away from her down a narrow alley. Eventually, the physician determined this represented a long-ignored grief. She had lost her daughter years ago and never spoken of it. The treatment? Not a potion, not acupuncture.